Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Forza Italian football podcast. We're back again. You're going to be hearing a lot from us this week, particularly you patrons. We're sorry in advance. I'm your host, Conor Clancy, joined by Pogorzelski. Kev, say hello.
Hi, everybody.
A bit more happiness, enthusiasm.
Yeah. Oh, hi, everybody. It's been a long weekend. There's been a lot of alcohol.
Okay, there you go. That's just any other weekend for you, though, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah,
Were
probably.
you in Liverpool again this weekend?
Yeah, we went up, spent a few days in Liverpool.
Very nice. I can really hear how tired you sound. But anyway, Vito, Doria, fresh out of bed this morning with the coffee. I hope you're going to bring the energy to the pod. How are you keeping?
Look, I'm fine, and yes, I did bring. I hope to bring the energy because I did have my coffee, and in these situations, coffee is essential. So, yeah, it's a great round to talk about Serie A, and yeah, hopefully, I keep the buzz.
Absolutely. Look, I'm gonna say I'm gonna need it anyway because I am absolutely shattered. I'm in the door. I think 15, 20 minutes just before we started recording from a fantastic weekend in Venice, which you'll be able to read about on ForzaItalianFootball.com tomorrow morning. But our patrons over on patreon.com/Forza Italian Football will be able to read even more about it because it will feature very, very heavily in the Tuesday newsletter for this week, which leads me nicely on to the fact that ForzaItalianFootball.com are on Patreon. Last week, again, we produced 3 Patreon exclusive pieces of content. There was the Champions League review pod, the Serie A preview pod, and the aforementioned Tuesday newsletter. The idea of that is to just give you a little bit of taste of what's going on in Italy. We take a look at the newspaper headlines of what they've really been focusing on throughout the week. I touch on where I've been that given weekend, and then we finish off with something else as well. So patreon.com/Forza Italian Football.com. There's a €2, €5, and a €10 tier. Any support is greatly appreciated. The more you guys support us, the better the content gets. And to be frank, the more games we get to go to and not just Sassuolo every other week. So please head over, sign up, join the party. Anyway, the Serie A action finished this weekend. Well, it didn't actually because Udinese and Napoli is still to be played on Monday evening. The game of the round was Juventus-Milan. It finished 1-1, but it all started on Friday when Sassuolo lost 1-0 to Torino. Then Fiorentina beat Genoa 2-1. Inter thumped Bologna 6-1. Salernitana were good but lost 1-0 to Atalanta. Ciccio Caputo-inspired Sampdoria beat Empoli 3-0. Venezia were beaten 2-1 by Spezia. Cagliari and Lazio were 2-2. And Verona beat Roma 3-2. Anyway, we're going to start where, well, it didn't finish, but you know what I mean. Juve Milan in Turin. Kev. Juventus probably went into this as underdogs, as crazy as that is to say, but they started brilliantly and will end disappointed that they could only get a draw against Milan.
Yeah, certainly went in as underdogs, being what were they, 8 points behind Milan, yet to win this season. Milan were looking at a perfect start to the season, but they did start really well. I was at Anfield on Wednesday night, and it looked as though Allegri had also kept a keen eye on that, because it was almost as if he started in very much, or he had Juventus started in very much the same way in which Liverpool kind of just battered Milan for the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. I think at Anfield they withstood, well, apart from conceding the own goal, withstood sort of 13 shots in the first 15 minutes, and it looked to be a similar sort of approach from Allegri, although without kind of the cutting edge. And I just wonder whether he maybe was remembering some of his previous Juve sides of a better kind of pedigree, because as soon as they sort of tired, and even with Milan losing Simon Kjaer just before half time, once they managed to kind of regroup and come out for the second half, they dominated lots of the ball. And I think Juve will be disappointed because Ante Rebic, who got the equaliser on 75 minutes, was having a not a terrible game, but just a really quiet game. And without Ibrahimovic or Olivier Giroud to kind of provide that focal point, Rafa Leao actually was having quite a poor game, and I did wonder if it was worth just switching those over. But eventually, corner gets swung over by Tonali and virtually unmarked. Certainly an avoidable goal for Juventus, and I think that's why they will go away tonight feeling really disappointed that they've not sort of made some ground on the teams that they will be trying to chase for a Scudetto. But it's looking like even with what we said last week, I think it was about how badly they started in 2015-16 with under Allegri. It looks like this year is going to be another season of struggle like the last.
Yeah, it does. I felt so sad and disappointed that it was an unmarked header, because the man, in inverted commas, marking him was new boy Manuel Locatelli, and he didn't do himself any favors with that attempt of keeping tabs on him. But Vito, Kev he pointed this out. Juventus are still without a win in Serie A this season. I saw this result as quite a positive, and in my head that, I don't know, because they got that good win in midweek in the Champions League and then drawing with Milan, I thought, oh yeah, things are okay, but very much not, right? Because they still haven't won a game yet in Serie A.
Yeah, it's quite incredible that Juve have not got a win in 4 league games. And I'll just throw a statistic I've just seen here on Opta, and it says that Juventus have been winless in the first 4 league games for the 4th time in their history. So 42-43, which the city rivals Torino won the title, 55-56, and the 1961-62 season. So it's quite a long time between drinks, and yeah, it's quite alarming that they have this. I mean, I tend to agree with Kev that they did have that bad start in 2015, 2016. So they might be able to bounce back, but it certainly won't be easy. And it shows that Allegri is still trying to find his way with this core of players. With all due respect to Malmo, I think that was a fixture that came at an ideal time for Juve to get a confidence booster. But at this stage, it looks like they're still having their fair share of difficulties in Serie A.
Kev, Juve did fly out of the traps, and I was quite surprised because you looked at the team, and I think it's probably fair to say it was quite a pragmatic 11 from Allegri. I mean, it's not a great surprise, but Quadrado was the nominal right winger, and when Juventus are really playing their stuff, he's the right back, and I don't know, Chiesa's playing in that position. But did it come to you as a surprise that Juventus were as on the front foot as they were early on? And then secondly, what was it that caused them to stop being so dominant?
It did come as a surprise that they pushed so much. You could see reasons why they did it. Alexandro was extremely positive down the left hand side, and I think that was brought about by Tomori having to fill in the absence of Calabria, and then even with Kalulu taking over after Kier had gone off, he continued to kind of probe down that side. There was an element of maybe they saw how well Theo Hernandez was kind of pinned back by Mo Salah midweek, and Cuadrado was certainly tasked with that. I think that's what they were looking to achieve. But once they sort of withstood the first sort of 15 minutes that only brought the opening goal for Morata, but largely because it came from a Milan corner of a wonderful counter attack. Once they withstood that, it almost was as if the belief went out of the Juventus players, apart from probably Dybala, who was continually scheming, putting his foot into tackles a little bit more than what I recall seeing him in previous matches, in almost a way to say, come on, we've had this positive start, just because maybe the 2 or 3 goals haven't come, because shortly after Morata scored, he cut across, I think it was Romagnoli, and got a toe poke, which Mannion saved down to his right, and then Dybala had a sort of a shot from outside the area of his weaker right foot that got tipped around the post for a corner. and it does. It feels like the leaf drains out of this Juventus side probably quicker than I've ever seen it previously. Yeah, probably discounting last year where you could see that, but I always put last year down to a bit of a sort of pedestrian passing and kind of just a sluggishness to their play rather than actually. I think they were probably drilled this week to say, look, this team can, this Milan team can be got at if we go for them and we take our chances. But it felt like they gave up on that way too early.
Yeah, on to Milan then. Actually, just before we do go on to Milan, I want to say I was happy but also intrigued to see Dejan Kulusevski come off the bench for Juventus because our friends over at the Italian football podcast, Nima and Carlo, did an interview with Sven-Goran Eriksson during the week, and he said that he's been told that Allegri doesn't really, I guess he doesn't really trust Kulusevski. He says that he's of the opinion that Allegri doesn't think that Kulusevski can read a game well enough, which disappointing. Hopefully it's something that Allegri, as Juventus coach, can teach his player to do a little bit better, but we'll see. On to Milan. A good comeback, Vito, and encouraging signs that they were able to have this adversity and come back given the disappointment from midweek of that loss against Liverpool, which we discussed on one of the bonus pods on Patreon. But something about Ante Rebic and this season, he's hit a lovely vein of form, and maybe even when they don't have Giroud and Ibrahimovic, they're all right because Rebic is in this form this season.
It's a promising start for him, and I think it's great for Pioli to see that Rebic is playing well at this stage. Last season, and perhaps the second half of the 2019-20 season, we saw that he would try and fit in Lau and Rebic into the team, and they looked better off as left wingers, but playing that lone striker role was not convenient for them. It seems now that Rebic has probably become more settled in the Rossoneri squad, and instead of just playing on the left wing, he can play up front. And I think with that confidence, that familiarity with his teammates, that allows him to play better. He was involved with both goals last week. This time he scores the decisive equaliser. And yeah, going forward, I think it's important that he can show that versatility and maintain that form because once Giroud and maybe if Zlatan comes back, I think the additional depth is better, and also Pioli might be able to come up with different strategies to confuse opponents. If all three are fit and in form at once, then Milan don't have to have this dependency on one player for goals or for assists. It keeps the opposition on their toes, and perhaps this will help them to challenge for a Champions League spot again, and maybe even in the Champions League bounce back from that Liverpool loss and obtain some results in that competition too.
Do you think this is something that maybe has not been spoken of quite enough about this Milan attack, in that they've got Leao, Rebic, and Brahim, and they're all kind of players who don't have a fixed point of where they play in attack. They love to move about. Must be a bit of a nightmare to defend against because a centre back doesn't have that point of reference to cling on to. And maybe this is something that people should be talking a little bit more about.
It would be very concerning, especially if the centre back, depending on who the team is and whoever that specific defender is, they might get drawn too far forward or too far wide. So that would leave gaps for the defense. And the way the game is played now with zonal defending as opposed to the man marking system, it's easy for gaps to be exposed and to either play a through ball or break the offside trap in different ways. So that kind of movement from AC Milan will definitely confuse other defenders. And as I was alluding to earlier, I think that's where AC Milan potentially can get more goals. Getting these different options and finding different ways to go be a real bonus for them moving forward.
Kev, Frank Kessie, I think it's fair to say, he didn't have his best night. I know he's in contract talks at the moment with the club, and a lot of people were obviously quick to say, "Oh, how can he demand this much money when he's playing like this?" And I mean, it's one game. He's just played at the Olympics as well. Frank Kessie is bloody good. He had an off day, but fortunately for Milan, Sandro Tonali didn't, and he was probably one of the better players on the pitch. He got the assist for the goal, but I don't want to give him too much credit for that because it was just a pretty standard corner that he happened to find a teammate with. But Tonali's good. He's been good for quite a while now, and there are signs of encouragement for Milan pretty much all over the team.
Yeah, I think when I saw Tonali midweek, he came off the bench and he was very physical. I think they were trying to just kind of. I think they would have already been losing at that point, and there was a lot more of that from him tonight. Like you say, it was quite subdued from Kessie with regards to kind of holding the ball up, and certainly his passing was slow. It was certainly an off night for the former Atalanta man, but Tonali was everywhere. It was one of those you kind of your brain's still stuck in this Pirlo comparison.
Oh,
But when you
stop.
kind of see him, but when you see him charging about, you realise that he is such a different player. And it'll be interesting actually if he becomes more dominant from a kind of because he's obviously his body's probably still growing as well, being so young. And if he then because he's got a wonderful passing range, if he can add sort of the physicality to sort of hold players off the ball and recover possession, then he's going to be very important for Milan going forward, particularly if they, say they lost Kessie, due to the contract issues. But it was another impressive game, and hopefully he gets a few more. Obviously, we spoke about Kessie missing because of the Olympics, but it would be interesting if Kessie retains his place for the next game because it's obviously everything's coming up thick and fast this week, and whether Bennacer will come in alongside Tonali instead.
Kev, I'll stick with you. A slight concern for Milan would be that Simon Kjaer got injured. He's apparently done something to his right thigh. At the time of recording on Sunday evening, we do not know the extent of it. There are reports that he will undergo further tests over the next couple of days. Obviously, you'd imagine that will be done within the next 48 hours. So by the time we reconvene for midweek, who knows? Maybe he'll have played, or at least we will probably know the extent of his injury. But with young Kalulu coming in again, he did well last season when he was called upon, and he did a solid job again this evening. But you just look at that defense, and all right, if he is to play with Romagnoli this season, am I looking for things here to point at and say that's a potential weakness for Milan?
I think one of the big problems they had tonight was actually Kjaer and Romagnoli together. When Juventus were trying to sort of break quickly on them, and that injury has clearly come about from him kind of at his age, sort of busting a gut to get back, and something's gone there. Hopefully, it's not. I think abductor muscles in the thigh are a much trickier injury than a hamstring that you kind of can rest up if he's felt it go because he hasn't sort of kind of pulled up in agony. And actually, that was where one of the positives came from Milan because I think them being able to switch Tomori into the middle, it allowed some pace in the centre of defence, which against other sides as well will mean that they're safeguarded against the sort of the quicker attackers in the division. And Kalulu, I thought he did really well, and I felt he was let down a little by Salamakis in front of him because Salamakis kept drifting inside and actually got in the way of Diaz sometimes. And I think it was probably because they were looking for a goal and Rebic and Leao were having sort of a kind of off nights, or at least so nights. And actually, I was really impressed with Kalulu with his delivery, that he actually went to go to the byline because it would have been easy for him to kind of go on and just try and do his defensive duties, being young and inexperienced as he is. And I think he can grow into that role. I don't know personally how long Calabria's out for. Until I started watching the game, I didn't realise he was missing because I got the team news quite late. But I think he could be fine. I think it will. Romagnoli looked like he was a little bit more focused than he has maybe been over the last couple of years when he's kind of lost his place.
Very balanced from you, Kev. I'm impressed. Definitely not a lot of bias in that. I'm just scrambling to try and find out information about Davide Calabria because you put me on the spot. But Gazzetta are basically saying that all of Milan's injured players are to be evaluated. So I can't even provide you with any update there. I'm very, very sorry. Anyway, that'll do it for part 1. We'll be back in part 2 to talk about something that's going to make Vito very, very happy. Okay, we're back. Part 2. We're going to go to Liguria. More specifically, we're going to go to Genova. More specifically, we're going to talk about Genoa, the Grifone. They were beaten, Vito, 2-1. And look, after the winding up of you that I engaged in last week, I think you can probably get your own back here and celebrate a little bit in the fact that Fiorentina went to Marassi 1-2-1, thanks in part to a former Sampdoria man in Riccardo Saponara. So yeah, there you go, Vito. Take it away.
Oh, it was a game that Fiorentina dominated, and I don't think the scoreline really reflected on the dominance. Even on a waterlogged pitch and some rain early on in the game, the Viola showed that they were the better side. They were very composed on the ball, and with the style of play under Italiano, they show that regardless of the weather conditions and where they're playing, they are a team that's gonna attack the opponent. Genoa were pegged back most of the time and only really tried to offer any sort of threat on the counter attack. But it really took the second half for the Viola to really get back into the game, or to actually get on the scoreboard. And it was a former Sampdoria and Genoa player that got them into the game. So it was Riccardo Saponara with a piece of magic to score that first goal, and it was a lovely strike. And then he provided a delightful assist for Giacomo Bonaventura, and he essentially returned the favour because it was Bonaventura for the pass for the first goal, and then it was a pretty cool finish on Bonaventura's part to seal the win.
Kev, you're not going to jump in there? You're going to make me have to edit out that big, long pause as well on a week when we really don't want to be doing much editing because it needs to be really quick. Wait, don't say anything for 5 seconds and then just go.
This is about the goals. Not...
Okay, no, but wait, so then I can see when I'm editing it where I need to cut it. Okay, so...
Yeah, so you had Saponara hit that rocket, and then Bonaventura pick up with the winner. Although Genoa got a late sort of consolation for the penalty spot. I think that Saponara goal and everything else this weekend was sort of we had a kind of a goal of the month competition all in one weekend because there was sort of some real sort of stunning strikes to go alongside them. There was the beauty that we'll get onto at Venezia that we'll probably leave there. Vito's very own Sampdoria had Candreva for once kind of not, sending a cross, into sort of the stands and actually sort of had a lovely curling effort. And then you had the back heel from Pellegrini during the Roma game, the worldie from, I'm gonna get this pronunciation really wrong, but Farioni that won the game for Verona, which was probably my pick of the goals for the weekend. That sort of cushioned control, and then to hit it with the other foot. And I think it helped that the goalkeeper died for it, Rui Patricio, and it sort of kissed the crossbar coming down. But yeah, kind of started with that Saponara strike. Some of these sort of goal of the month contenders.
That goal
that we don't do, but maybe we need to consider for our Patreons.
We used to do goal of the month, and to be perfectly honest, it was an absolute pain to organise. So maybe for the patrons, but I highly doubt we'll ever do that again. If we do, it's not going to be anything that I'm involved with because it was too much. It was too.
I'm just mentioning it to get you more work. So
cheers, mate. You've already done that on the edit job on this pod, so I appreciate that very, very much.
Should also actually mention Dzeko's 2 goals. You kind of forget
Right.
about him, but the first touch and toe poke, and then the one from a close angle was lovely.
We'll do that, but
Okay.
later. Anyway, cheers, Kev. Back to Fiorentina. Vito, you've got to just take your hat off to the work that Italiano is doing there this season, because how many coaches have we seen come and go at that club and do absolutely nothing? And I know it's something that you've been writing about, which will be published on ForzaItalianFootball.com tomorrow morning, Monday. So by the time people are listening to this, it will be out. So go read it. But Italiano's work, he's doing a fine job there.
So far, so good. 4 games in, they've won 3 matches. The only game they've lost was the opening round game against Roma in Rome. And even in that game, they did not play badly at all. It was just that bad mistake from Drongowski in that game that was quite costly. But other than that, they've bounced back and they've got a clear plan, a style of play that suits the squad that's at Italiano's disposal. And they'll definitely be a team to watch. Whether they'll finish in the top half or actually challenge for a European spot, it remains to be seen. But Italiano is laying some good foundations so far.
It's interesting that Vito mentions the squad at Italiano's disposal, because there was somewhere else that I saw somebody mention that he's doing a lot of this with kind of the players that were there when he came in. It's not, they haven't had massive arrivals that have suddenly sort of allowed them to kind of kick on this season. It really does maybe show, firstly, the level of his coaching, now he's organised that team, obviously coming in just this summer, but also maybe the failings of coaches before them that have maybe wanted their own players rather than. I think Fiorentina for a long time have needed a coach that will look at that, the tools at his disposal and make something of it. We always talking about something that's bigger than the sum of its parts, and he seems to be doing that there.
But I think it exposes how bad a job the previous coaches did, to be honest with you, because you look at that Fiorentina team, they're not a team of mugs, right? They've got Bonaventura, Cagliajon, Ribéry was there, Amrabat's there, Vlahovic, Chiesa was there, Milenkovic is a decent defender, Drongowski is one of the best goalkeepers in Serie A. They've had good players. They've just been a circus for the last few years. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think some of that is probably coming from the very, very top of the club, because every time you open a newspaper here, you know who's moaning about something, about the stadium or whatever else it will be. And I'm not sure what was going on before Italiano came in, but you've just got to say, I don't want this to seem like I'm taking anything away from him either, because he is doing an excellent job. To have made such an impact so quickly is remarkable, but it does also expose just how crap everybody before him was. Cesare Prandelli, I think I will exclude from that because he did okay. Vito.
If we talk about the previous coaches specifically, I think, it does show that they were bad. I mean, Prandelli, I think it's more just, I think just in terms of experience and just the timing of his coaching career, I don't think he is of the level that he was 10, 15 years ago when he was at Fiorentina the first time round. And the first half of his spell with Italy was quite decent, but after the Euro 2012 final, he's regressed as a coach. So I think it's just more of a sign of him being on his final legs. Iachini, he encourages his teams to work hard, but very simplistic in his coaching approach, and he's a pragmatist at best. So he wasn't going to really improve a lot of players. And then Montella, he's another player that, coach that has regressed significantly, because the first time around he did a fantastic job then. They were getting Europa League spots. They reached the semi-finals of the Europa League in 2014-15, but at the same time, I would give Mo Salah a lot of credit for putting that incredible run together. But, going to Samp, then at Milan he did okay, but after that he's just gone backwards and regressed as a coach, and I don't think there's much of a future for him. So for Italiano to do what he's done, I think it really shows how great he's done, and also that he's really got some ideas. The other coaches, probably had less ideas or just a much more simplistic way of coaching in comparison to what Italiano has done in the first 4 rounds.
Yeah, well, look, we saw just how good of a coach Italiano was with that Spezia team last season. The job he did there again, just so good, so good. He's a very, very exciting coach and one to absolutely keep an eye on as this season progresses, but more so as his career progresses. Kev, we did have a question that was sent in to us on Twitter. Well, not really a question, more something being pointed in our, more specifically your direction, because there was a tweet from a guy called James Campbell Taylor who said, "Are Fiorentina the first team to ever wear 4 different kits in their opening 4 games of the season?" And then the Football Chronicles podcast said, "This sounds like something Kev might have a spreadsheet on." I'm sure you don't have a spreadsheet on every start of the season that has ever been played, but have you been doing any digging about this?
Yeah, I tried to do a little bit of digging. It does feel, from what I could not unearth, that Fiorentina may be the first club in history. I think they're probably one of the few clubs that actually have 4 kits anyway. So that kind of does help them. It gives them an advantage over other sides. The one that I thought of just before coming on to do this pod was that Bayern Munich played in a Bavarian specialist kit. So I thought, well, have they played in their home, their away, their third, and this Bavarian one this season? But then they probably had Champions League games in the way, and I think the Bundesliga are on their 5th round of fixtures. So maybe even Bayern haven't done it this season. But it looks like Fiorentina have got what I would want to be an unwanted record, because it's somewhat ridiculous.
Been meaning to talk to you because you're a fraud. You liked the Bayern kit. That surely goes against absolutely everything you stand for, other than the fact that it's beer related.
I like the colour combination. I didn't like the thought of them having the kit, but I did like the. I think it's probably racing green and gold is what they would class as.
Yeah, you said you went for racing green. Quite interesting. I'd go for it as like a foresty green. You know, that it was that dark color. It is a lovely kit. You've got to say. You've got to say. We'll be talking a little bit more about more lovely kits in part 3. Guys, I went to Venezia this weekend, as you no doubt saw if you follow me on Twitter. And I've got to say, I had a lovely time well, not quite from the moment I got there, because it was Venice. I obviously got lost on my way to my Airbnb. Fortunately, just the once. And then I was back on track and I got there, dropped my stuff off, went around the city. But the reason I was there was for the Sunday afternoon game, the standalone 3 p.m. Sunday game, oddly. Although Ewan did point that out to us on the preview pod, and I refused to believe it until it was happening today. And then I was looking for the other results, and I thought, oh, okay, Ewan was onto something there. But Venezia, unfortunately, playing a Serie A game in Venice for the first time since April 2002, couldn't get their first Serie A win in Venice since February 2002. They fell just short, and it was quite heartbreaking the way it happened. Kev, I know you watched this one as well, but Venezia went 1-0 down, then they fought back to be at 1-1, and then in the final minutes, they were the team pushing and pushing for the winner, but Mehdi Bourabia got it for for Spezia at the other end in the 94th minute with another one of these good goals we've seen in Serie A this weekend. But it was out of nowhere, and you've just got to feel for the Arancione Verde, which is the most complicated nickname to say in Serie A because they've put 3 colours in there. But it was a bitter pill for them to swallow.
Yeah, I certainly won't be saying that one anytime soon. I struggle enough with players' names. I think you even did them a little bit of a disservice there, sort of saying that they were pushing towards the end of the game. I thought there were large spells of that second half where it felt like it was all Venezia. And because it was the only Serie A game being broadcast at a time, I did sit down and watch it. And I found myself feeling frustrated for them because I thought it was going to kind of play out to a draw. I thought it was starting to highlight maybe a real lack of quality that will see them ultimately maybe plummet back down to Serie B because they were getting down the lines and then the cross would go in. It's like, oh, where have you hit that to? You know, them they might not get many people in the box, but it's like the cross then needs to be accurate, or they get to the edge of the box and then somebody sort of a proper kind of almost felt like a lower league shank into the sort of stands, and it's like, oh, if you just had a little bit more quality, your dominance would probably be yielding more goals. And while you don't want clubs to come up and then kind of just spend their way into buying that quality in, you feel that it's kind of going to prove firstly it's going to prove a really important result because Spezia will be down there challenging as well, but it feels like it's going to be what we're going to see a lot of from Venezia, and it's going to cause them to probably not be able to keep themselves in Serie A.
I was quite encouraged watching this Venezia team because until today I was convinced Venezia don't have a chance at staying up, but they're slowly winning me round. I will confess this is the first time I've watched an entire 90 minutes of them this season, but I was very enamored, I suppose you could say, with Dennis Johnson. He's a 23-year-old Norwegian forward, and he's had time with Ajax, Aaron Veen in the past. He's an under-21 international, and he was so lively. And I know there's this thing where blonde players are statistically more likely to be scouted because they stand out because of their hair. And he's this big, tall, blonde guy, so he does stand out. But my God, he is fun to watch. Some of his little touches as well. The ball would come to him 40 yards and he'd flick it off with an elegant little touch and then just get on a run. And I do think that he's gonna provide them with some moments this season. And if those moments are enough for them to stay up, he's going to get a move next summer. You can see it happening already. But yeah, Johnson, I'm telling you guys, keep an eye on him. I said it about Kulusevski at the beginning of his Parma season. Keep an eye on Dennis Johnson at Venezia.
I think that with Dennis Johnson, though, he really needs to work on his shooting. And this game, and noticed it more last week, he probably should have had a few more goals. So if Paolo Zanetti can work on that aspect of his game, I think he'll be a very dangerous player and could be decisive if they have any chance to stay in Serie A this season. Because, like you said, he's got the height, but he's very mobile, quite graceful. He has those bursts of pace, and he's got that very good ball control. But the finishing is definitely lacking. So more work on that, and I think that's how a team like Venezia might be able to obtain some results.
Vito's slated his shooting now, so watch him pop up with a winner against Samp later in the season.
That I do take that point completely because his final product, and there were a couple of crosses. I mean, Kev referred to a cross that was shanked into the stands. One of those was Johnson's today, but I think it's a product of him trying things that other players aren't necessarily trying. And as far as the finishing goes, I think it's more going to be down to David Okereke and Thomas Henry, who we've got to talk about. He wears the number 14 and his name is TH Henry. Avoid that number. Choose any other number. Don't take the number 14. You're only going to be a disappointment. And I was quite disappointed with him today, but because I was expecting him to be Thierry Henry, obviously, it wasn't to be. But that Venezia front three, they move. They move. And like what we were saying about Milan, must be a nightmare to defend against because you never know where they are. They're all over the place. Another player was okay for a bit today was, of course, the American Gianluca Busio, and he was very warmly applauded by the Venetians, both when his name was read out at the beginning of the game and when he was substituted and he was dead on his feet. He got the assist though, so getting Venezia's first Serie A assist in Venice in what 19 years. That's not a bad memory for the guy who's just come over here. But Kev, how you feeling after this? Spezia obviously getting 3 big points. I bigged it up before the game as being a potential, not necessarily a 6-pointer, but a game that come the end of the season we will probably look back at and say, that had quite a big say in who finished where.
Yeah, because I think without Italiano this year, Spezia will find it slightly more difficult, certainly to pick as many points up as they did early on last year. I actually wanted to deviate away from Spezia and just back to Venezia for a minute because I've got some, questions about the attendance there. It's difficult to judge at the moment because I know, I've been to Venice once and that was.
You didn't stop talking, did you?
Oh wow, that's what I thought you wanted me to do.
No, I wanted you to keep talking while I went to get this.
That wasn't clear. Vito, shake your head. That wasn't clear.
Right, what were you saying? Go on.
Yes, so I've been to Venice once, and like you said earlier about getting lost, it's difficult to navigate your way around. But it was hard with the reduced capacities to see if them being back in Serie A had sort of piqued the interest of local people. I know it's not one of the easiest places to get to, and I wonder if it was at full capacity, if there were general admissions.
Well,
so
that's what I went. That's what I stopped you for, because we got given the attendance figures, which I was so happy about because I keep notes in my little. I've got a little notebook which you can see that I keep notes of the starting 11s from every game that I go to. I keep number of the game it is, the date, the substitutions, the goal scorers, and also the referees, the VAR people, and the attendances. But people haven't been giving attendance figures during the pandemic, even when there were fans in stadiums, which has annoyed me. Venezia, thank you very, very much, because you did. You did, and you even printed them out for us. So the Pierluigi Penso holds 7,500 normally, and we are currently operating at 50% capacity, and there were 3,688 people in attendance. 193 of those were Spezia fans, so that is 50% attendance. So I would say that your chances of getting a ticket for there are relatively slim if things stay as they are, but we don't know what the roadmap is going to be. We should have a bit of more of an idea at the end of this month. Draghi should say what's going to happen for October and possibly November as well. So I think we might be able to see an increased capacity at stadiums. So who knows, Kev? Once Draghi speaks, I'll let you know. Okay?
That would be good because, as you know, I'm due over in December.
Yes.
You're going to get that meal, I promise you.
2 meals.
2 meals, yeah.
2 meals. And you'll be buying for me and Stace, so it's going to be an expensive night out for you. 2 expensive nights out.
She's not coming.
Oh, is she not? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Just me.
Oh, God. Right. I prefer Stace. But anyway.
Most people do.
Guys, that'll do it for part 3. Right, part 4. I think it's part 4. I've lost count, to be honest. But let's run through the rest of the Serie A fixtures, shall we? Up near the top of the table, Inter beat Bologna 6-1. And I felt for our friend and commentator, Patrick Kendrick, because he felt something that I felt but was bold enough to tweet it before the game, which was that he thought Bologna might do a job against Inter. I retweeted it before the game, not one of these post-match trolls, because I did actually think that Bologna could go there and do a job. Thought it a little bit less when I saw that Muzzabaro wasn't starting, but Vito, 6-1. This was relentless from Inter.
I did not expect the scoreline to be that comprehensive, despite Bologna leaking goals like a sieve so far this season in all competitions.
Except against Atalanta.
Yeah. Yeah, 0-0 draw. Yeah, mind-boggling. Back to this game, though, it just shows that even with Simone Inzaghi, 4 league games in charge, he's really got this team maintaining the good performances from last season, playing with a bit more fluidity and slickness. And it was good to also see some of the new signings or returnees put in a good performance. So you had your usual suspects like Lautaro play well, and uh, and the back line, especially Milan Skriniar, can't really fault him. Another fine performance, but to see Denzel Dumfries at right wing back and Federico Di Marco on the left, they both played well as also to have them providing their input from the flanks. I think that's impressive on their part, and overall, yeah, just a great display from Inter. But Bologna just yeah, talk about a terrible day at the office.
Mm.
And aside from Barrow, they seem to have most of the regular teams. So, yeah, that's going to be a real shock to the system. And got to wonder, where does Mihalovic's future lie from here?
I felt bad for Aaron Hickey, because Dumfries just ate him alive, spat him out, and then ate him again. It was tough watching that. Really, really tough. But welcome to top level professional football, as I suppose, for Hickey. He's still very much learning, still a decent player who's improving. But yeah, a painful one. Friday evening then is where it all started, and it started out in Reggio Emilia. I was there. The other game I was at this weekend, let me tell you, it felt good being at 2 games in a weekend again. It's been a while. But Torino left with a 1-0 win. Marco Piazza scored a very late goal. I think it was the 83rd minute. But God knows how it took 83 minutes for a goal to go in this game, because I lost count of the number of times the woodwork was hit. Sassuolo hit it once. Torino hit it, I think, twice, maybe 3 times, possibly even 4 times. They had 2 shots cleared off the line. Sassuolo had a goal ruled out for offside. And Consiglia, I believe, made a good save as well, but I might have just invented that. But there was a lot of goalmouth action and just not very many goals. And I've got to put that blame on myself, because I am a curse this season when it comes to goals, because I'm just not seeing very many when I go to men's football. When I go to women's football, I see plenty. So maybe I should just bin off the men's Serie A and just stick with Serie A Femminile, because I have much better time at those games, to be perfectly honest with you, when it comes to goals. But what can you do? What else was there this weekend? Kev, Salernitana Atalanta. Atalanta scraped a 1-0 win, and Salernitana can feel very, very hard done by.
Yeah, there were. It started as if Atalanta were going to kind of steamroll them, and then again it was a little bit like some of the other games this weekend, where it just kind of grinded on a little bit until they finally got that goal. It's kind of a classic move from Zapata. He did it against Villarreal almost and laid the ball off for Freuler to score the first goal, but instead he kind of turned. I think he was probably he might have found himself a little bit surprised to actually turn and not have a defender on his back because he almost had a free shot at goal. But yeah, they'll be glad, even though we know they start slowly, to get 3 points against Salernitana, who will be down there and struggling, and they need to kind of keep pace with the other sides that have had quite good starts to the season.
I probably felt that there should have been a few more goals in this game, but one particular highlight, at least from Salernitana's perspective, was that chance Joel Obi had to score where he hit the post. That backheel assist from Federico Bonazzoli, that was special. If only the ball went into the net, I think more people would be talking about that assist, or I would be talking it up a lot more, because that was sublime.
Davide Zappacosta's miss late on. Good lord. Good lord. I don't know how he didn't put that in. It was almost an open goal, and the position he found himself in was astonishing that he didn't manage to put it away. Vito, I said in my post-match video from the Mappe Stadium that there was a little bit of a Ciccio Caputo-sized hole in Sassuolo's attack, and that's because he's banging in goals for Sampdoria now. He went to his former club Empoli. He bagged 2. Candreva got the other. Sampdoria left with their first win under Roberto De Versa. Everyone's happy.
Yes, I saw some tweets from the some Doria fans actually in Italy, and usually a very pessimistic bunch, but they were really overjoyed with the result and the performance. Caputo, in particular, had an excellent game, and shows why he was brought in, because we can't have a Quagliarella dependency. He was just so calm when he put the ball in the back of the net both times, and for me, I think based on those goals, he was the man of the match. But Antonio Candreva probably had his best game so far for the club as well. He wasn't always on the right wing. He would drift to the left, sometimes down the middle, and he scored a lovely goal himself. So Caputo and Candreva were the standouts. And even in the first half, the much maligned Omar Colley even had a solid game in defence. So good to get to the first win of the season. The performances in general have been quite impressive. So hopefully Roberto D'Aversa can, keep obtaining the results. And I think he'd be glad that now at Samp he's got a better team to work with. And having a struggle like Caputo, despite his age, he's still showing his class.
Caputo's
What is Caputo drinking during his
beer.
celebration? Because a man of my age, he's putting the phone receiver in his sort of mouth
No,
because that's what it is.
he's drinking beer in a big, like, what are they called? Is it a tankard with the big handles and you hold? But I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah, because he's got
okay.
his a little birrificio, doesn't he? He like has a, what's it called? What's the name of a brewery? He's got a brewery. I'm pretty sure he's high up in, and yeah, he's always advertising it and stuff. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, it was a bad weekend for the clubs from the capital. Starting with Lazio, they drew 2-2 with Cagliari. Of course, Ciro Immobile scored, so did Danilo Cataldi. But in between those two goals, Joao Pedro and Keita Balde scored for the Islanders. Kev.
Yeah, it was a relatively interesting game. Obviously, on the back of Lazio in midweek, if anybody saw Strakosha's
Oh
mistake
God.
in Europe. So yeah, that was the first bit of hilarity from the blue side of the capital. And then, although it's not kind of linked to Lazio, if anybody watched this game, they would have seen the ball dropping to Walter Mazzari on the bench, and he went to boot the ball back for a goal kick, but he absolutely sliced it, and the referee booked him. And I thought, what are you doing? I thought he's actually tried to deliver the ball back. He's absolutely missed a shot, but it was the way that he kind of had his arms outstretched, and then he was sort of saluting the crowd. But I think it's the first time I've ever seen Mazzari smile. It's quite chilling.
Did he smile?
But yeah, he kind of smiled from the angle from the camera that was across the pitch to him, rather than, I think he was initially frustrated with the
You
booking.
sure it was him?
But maybe he got a cheer from the Lazio fans after doing it. But there was certainly an angle of him smiling with his arms held aloft. But it tickled me ever so slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed to see Semplici gone, and to be honest, disappointed to see Mazzari back. But he will provide some brief moments of discussion on this podcast, I'm sure. Vito, Verona no, they didn't. Verona hosted Roma and they went behind. Lorenzo Pellegrini continuing his phenomenal start to this Serie A season, but Antonin Barak, Gianluca Caprari, of course he did because I criticised him, and Davide Farioni scored to complete a decent comeback for Verona and get them 3 big points in the post EDF era.
Yeah. Again, it's with this whole kind of honeymoon period type stuff. You change a coach and they get their first win of the season, and some lovely goals too. Mind you, the Barak goal to make it 1-1 was probably the most bland of the goals. Pellegrini's goal, as mentioned earlier, was a fantastic back heel, just delightful stuff, and the likes of Alessandro Del Piero and Roberto Mancini scored goals like that back in the day, but good to see someone from the current crop produce something special like that. The Caprari goal just sliced through the Roma defense. That was a fine strike on his part, and but the winner from Faraoni, that was superb. Like Kev touched on before, just to control it first and then to just slam it in. fantastic technique and a worthy win of the game. So hopefully that's the catalyst to start off the season on a good way. And maybe my prediction of the Jalablu getting relegated is going to go completely wrong simply because Di Francesco was sacked after just 3 rounds.
Kev, do you want to complain that Jose Mourinho wasn't celebrating this or something? Because I know you were weird about that last week.
No, he had his usual face like thunder after a defeat. This time, I think he came out and said that this is going to take him some hours to work out what happened. I imagine whether anything's been lost in translation, it's because they've effectively been put to the sword by 2 wonderful goals of the 3, and you can't really legislate for that.
I think that might have been a little bit overplayed. I'm pretty sure he just said, "Oh, we need to watch it back to see where we went wrong." I'm pretty sure it was just a normal thing, but I might be wrong.
It's certainly been mistranslated in the English side of the
right. I do have to throw in the caveat. I saw a lot of it in English, and then I went and I saw the quote in Italian very quickly while I was walking back from the train station, and I'm pretty sure he just said we need to watch it back, but I didn't hear the tone or anything, so I'll look into it.
He's given us his box office, which is what you want him to give us, Connor. So.
But he didn't. This is the thing, right? When he's box office, love it. When he does nothing and people try to make it something, that gets under my skin. He was asked what went wrong, I'd imagine, and he said, "We don't know yet. We need to look into it." And that's a thing. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's not a story. Anyway, the football isn't finished because Lega Serie A just like making our lives complicated. Udinese host Napoli on Monday evening. The Partenopei, of course, have the opportunity to go clear at the top. If they win, they go on to 12 points, and their nearest competitors are the 2 Milanese sides, who are both on 10, but it's still far too early to be talking about things like that. Anyway, head over to patreon.com/ForzaItalianFootball.com because Kev and I will be back in your ears very, very soon with the preview of round 5. And the chances are by the time you're listening to this, that will also be out. So do head over there, sign up for the €5 tier to avail of that. €2 patrons will get the first. What will they get? The first newsletter of every month and 1 free bonus podcast every month. Patrons, you're getting 3 pieces of content a week. So head over, €5 a month, and support the website and get more excellent stuff as the season progresses. We're having a lot of fun over there. You get to hear people like Kev. Kev's wife makes an appearance sometimes. Ewan is involved as well. We need to get Vito in too sometime soon. Time zones are causing a little bit of a problem with that. But anyway, Kev, say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Vito, yes, we will actually. We'll try to get you on some historical stuff for the patrons as well. But for now, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Speak to you again soon. Bye.